Hi, welcome back to my garden. I am very pleased to announce I have actually finished reading Brainjo, the quite wonderful book written by Dr. Josh Turknett. He's a neuroscientist and highly accomplished banjo player, and this book is about learning to play the banjo. But it's about learning. And even though I have no interest in learning to play the banjo, I guess I do have an interest one day in learning to play the guitar. But certainly that's not why I'm reading the book at the moment. My current learning interest is, I suppose, on a meta level, learning about learning, and on a very concrete level, studying chess to become a better chess player. And I've mentioned before, when I discussed this book, how it seems to be that every chapter is absolutely translatable, directly mappable onto chess. Even though that might seem like quite a stretch, one being learning to play a musical instrument, the other being a very abstract board game. And yet I stand by my claim. But the claim kind of was tested in one of the later chapters, and that's what I want to talk about this week. I think it's chapter 32. They're very short, which does make reading the book an absolute pleasure, because you get a nice, digestible, bite-sized, sort of thought-provoking piece that you can read very, very quickly and then spend the rest of the day pondering. And chapter, I think it's 32, is all about stumbling blocks in the learning process. And it begins by looking at 3/4 of what I suppose could be a 2x2 matrix. Things we know, things that we know we don't know, and then there's things that we don't know we don't know. Let me unpick that, because it's a bit of a word salad. So obviously, if one thinks learning to play a musical instrument, you will know whether you can finger a chord correctly and play it, or not. And equally, there might be a chord that you've seen someone playing that you know you haven't yet mastered how to play. So the first is something that you know, and the second is something that you know you don't know. And in those cases, it's very easy. You practice the stuff that you know, just to keep it kind of fresh, or perhaps you apply it, and that keeps it fresh and in your sort of toolbox of usable techniques. And if you learn it well enough, it becomes something like the mythical riding a bicycle that you never forget how to do. So I suppose a guitarist, even, or a banjo player, even if they haven't picked up the instrument for years and years and years, will pretty much instantly play their A or E chord. And then, of course, there's stuff that you're learning how to do that you know you don't know how to do it. And that's stuff that you need to just double down on, skill by skill, and learn. And actually, he also talks about how it's important to learn things in the right sequence, and actually learn them correctly, so that you don't kind of bake into your neurocircuitry bad habits that will come back to haunt you later on in your learning journey. But what about the third category, the things you don't know? I mean, if you don't know you don't know it, it makes learning it rather difficult. And Josh shed some light on this, referencing another very good book about the learning process, Talent Code by, I think it's Daniel Coyle. A book that, if nothing else, is another nail in the coffin of the talent myth. Yes, of course, we have, on some level, we all have our talents, what we're born with, but it's got nothing to do with our ability to really perform even at a very high level. And that's to do with all sorts of other things, as I suppose I've discussed ad nauseum on this channel. But Daniel talks about, in his book, hard and soft skills. And, well, what are those? Well, in Brainjo, Turknett, Josh Turknett gives a variety of examples, but I'll just pick one of each. A hard skill is the chord that you learn how to play, that A chord or E chord that probably is right at the very beginning of your stringed instrument journey. A soft skill might be being able to jam with other musicians. Actually, that might be a whole bundle of soft skills. And, well, reading about that, it got me thinking, my own current learning journey, well, what's a hard skill in chess? And what are the soft skills? And it really did seem to me quite difficult to pick them apart. And then it struck me that perhaps that's because I'm actually quite a long way down the chess learning journey. You know, I was a stronger player than I am now, but even now I guess I'm in the sort of, on the largest chess playing forum, chess.com. I suppose I'm in the top 1% of players. So, which I think says as much to me personally about how much chess has exploded in the post-Queen's Gambit and post-COVID world. A lot of people have started playing chess, and consequently a lot of them are frankly just at the beginning of their journey, and so consequently not particularly strong players. So this is not a I believe a symmetrical normal distribution. There's probably an interesting kind of skew in one direction. But be that as it may, it did, after a little bit of reflection, seem like the most plausible argument why I had difficulty thinking about what hard skills in chess are. I mean, a skill knowing how to move the pieces. Well, for many people at the beginning of the chess journey, that's a challenge. A bit later on, remembering how those tricky moves, first castling and later on en passant, work. Well, those are hard skills. And eventually, basic tactical operations are probably hard skills. And in that sense, chess, just like anything else, the basic hard skills that you need to learn are very nicely mapped out for you. And it makes a lot of sense to follow a course by a good quality course by a reputable teacher. Certainly if you're learning online, they're easy to identify. And if you have any difficulties, there's a lot of people, a lot of material that will steer you in the right direction, so that you learn those hard skills, as Josh points out, in the right order, because if you learn them in the wrong order, or you try and learn them kind of all in one go, there's problems. I think this is actually something that, as an experienced player returning to chess, I am starting probably to realize that a lot of my difficulties are in the soft skill area, and they're in, I suppose, evaluating a position might be a soft skill. And they're skills that are perhaps not ideally mastered, or worse still, sort of mastered in a sense incorrectly. Well, what does that mean? How could you master something incorrectly? Well, what I've mastered is essentially wrong. And as Josh mentions, well, at that point, certainly with the hard skills, if, for example, you've learned to play a chord incorrectly or in a suboptimal fashion, the way you position your fingers, perhaps I'm mangling the example, but you might be best going right back to the beginning and learning it all over again. And I'm starting to think that might be the case, that I need to go back to the beginning with some of my chess skills and learn them as I perhaps should have learnt them 500 rating points ago. That will make sense if you're a chess player. So although it required a little bit of thinking, in the end, actually just thinking about this book sort of brought home and clarified some very interesting points for my own personal chess learning journey. And probably this is about as far as I'll go for the moment with Brainjo, but it will be in the Master of Self-Actualization. I would say that as long as you have at least some notion of playing a stringed instrument, and by some notion you understand that the right and left hands are maybe doing different things, and you've seen someone play a stringed instrument before, I think that's as much as you need to know, that there are chords and notes in music. But really, you don't need to know very much about playing a musical instrument or learning to play a musical instrument to get an enormous amount out of this book, and indeed, I think out of every single chapter. And consequently, for the mastery program, I would recommend everyone investing the small sum necessary, picking up a Kindle copy, or getting a hard version if that's easy enough to do. If you live like I do in the middle of nowhere and the post can be a problem, or if you live in a country a long way away from suitable Amazon hard copy distributions, well, just get a Kindle version of it. And frankly, work out how this maps on to your learning journey in what you want to master. Because I think the effort will be richly rewarded. And eventually, when I've done that mapping process, I will share it in, somewhere on that wonderful World Wide Web, and you'll be able to pick up a copy of whatever it is that I've done. Until then, don't hold your breath, but eventually it is something that I will do. And that's it for this week. As always, I trust your lives are filled with joy, that your learning journey is proving fruitful. And until next week, from sunny Brazil, ciao.